of more or less. Hey, D. Wood, Patrick Mahomes is going to have more or less than 2.5 passing touchdowns against the Colts.
Greeny, have you seen Patrick Mahomes play recently? Yeah, I'm going more. And listen, this is not even about Patrick Mahomes for me. This is about like how bad like the Colts are right now. The Colts are an absolute mess. Patrick Mahomes seems like he's had no problem with, without Tyreek Hill and adjusting to these different playmakers that they have on offense.
Bart, speaking of Tyreek Hill, will he and Jalen Waddle have a combined 143 receiving yards against Buffalo, more or less?
I'm going to go more, but slightly. I'm going to go more. I just don't know how you can bottle up these two explosive athletes. That's just 70 yards per. I mean, they went for 300 last year. This 143 would be looked at as a disappointing week for them. So I'm going to go more, but just by a little bit.
In a game where the Bills figure to score points, maybe the over feels good there. Finally, Ninko, Aaron Rodgers against the Bucs, more or less than 1.5 passing touchdowns.
I'm going to go less on this one. This is going to be a good old-fashioned defensive battle. If you look at week 1, he doesn't throw any touchdowns. Then week 2, he throws 2 against a terrible Bears team. So maybe he'll throw 1 touchdown. So I'm going to go less. I'm going to go with 1. I'll split the difference between week 1 and week 2.
Yeah, one of the 2 touchdowns he threw was that little forward flip to Aaron Jones.
Doesn't count.
This will be the 5th time these 2 legends go head-to-head, by the way, if you don't include golf. Box score-wise, Rodgers and Brady actually have similar numbers. But Tom, of course, has the advantage that matters the most in the win column. 3 wins, including 2 of them coming with Tampa in 2020, one of those in a playoff game. So, but Bart, you just turned to me, and you just said, we were just in the break, and we were setting up, and you said to me, Packers going to win this game easily.
Yeah,
Why?
Listen, it's going to be a defensive struggle because they have more ways in which they can win, right? Aaron Rodgers may not have great receivers, but these are the receivers that he knew he was going to be playing with this year. Tom Brady's happened to figure it out. And you can give the ball to Leonard Fournette. A lot of times he has more carries, I believe, than anybody in the league. D. Wood told me that. But, he's a guy that also will fumble the football. And Aaron Rodgers doesn't turn over the football. And Aaron Rodgers is a guy, even though you can rush him, that can buy time with his feet. And I think, eventually, they'll get up by 2 scores and Tom will get desperate. And it'll be one of those games where we wonder, this is the end of Tom Brady. But, we know that that's a lie. He'll come back once he gets his weapons back. But I think Aaron Rodgers is just going to be too much.
Diana, what do you think of this one? It's a fascinating matchup. We looked at it from the Buccaneers side of it. How about Aaron's side of this thing? It's been an interesting start to his season.
Yeah, what we did before was we talked about all the injuries on the Bucs side. We never touched on the fact that Green Bay actually has some issues too, right? So we know David Bakhtiari, he didn't practice yesterday. Alan Lazard was limited. Randall Cobb didn't practice. Christian Watson was limited. Sammy Watkins was limited. And look, it's Wednesday, and some of these guys are veterans and older. I understand that they take it light, but this isn't like the Green Bay Packers are walking in healthy here. They've got some issues on their side on the offensive side of the ball as well for Aaron Rodgers. So while Bart just painted a great picture that Aaron Rodgers doesn't exactly have these elite weapons, well, those sort of average weapons right now, they're not even healthy.
That really is the question. Who are either of these guys going to throw to in this game? You want to see Rodgers and Brady. You want to see a shootout between 2 of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. It certainly doesn't feel like it's shaping up to be that. How about the Packers side of this thing, D. Wood?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I worry about their offensive line. I mean, we talk about
Bingo.
They talk about David Bakhtiari like this. They got problems up front on the offensive line. And so as much as we talk about Tampa Bay and who's not playing and their offensive line, Green Bay is dealing with a very similar situation. They got 2 good backs, but outside of that, who do they really have?
Well, they got their right tackle back, so that's a start. But who can deal with having a bad offensive line better?
That really is one of the question marks. What does that look on your face?
We talked about the offensive line for the Packers week 1 when he was getting ping-ponged and just destroyed by the Vikings.
Rodgers, yeah.
So, yeah, Rodgers was having a hard time with the pass rush. So then you look at the Bucs. They have 10 sacks on the year. 6 of those sacks come from blitzers coming off the edge, coming inside. So when you have, and you know this, a little bit of dysfunction in the offensive line, everything's about communication. Blitz pickup especially is about communication. Who do you got? Who do I got? Are we fanning? Are we like all those things that go into offensive line play is chemistry. I don't see the chemistry with the offensive line, especially with the injuries that the Packers are having. So That combined with the pressure that the Bucs can bring, I think it's going to be a long night for Aaron Rodgers.
Which of these quarterbacks, if either, makes the big mistake in this game? Neither of them, of course, historically are prone to do it. Could be a very low-scoring game. Meanwhile, we got some teams in the AFC that are really struggling. The game here is panic or patience. D. Wood, the Las Vegas Raiders, winless. Panic or patience?
Panic. I'm panic. Listen, when you talk about the Raiders, a couple things here. Number one, they don't know how to finish games. And then number two, this is a heavily penalized team. Like, you can't expect in the division that you're playing in the conference that you're in, that you're going to be able to win football games that way. They got to get those things straightened out fast.
Raiders committing penalties. At least we know there's something in life we can count on. Nico, the Colts have been awful. Panic or patience?
Panic. I'm panicked. Listen, what happened to the Colts? We thought Matt Ryan was the answer. We thought that was going to be the answer for them to win the division. Mm-hmm. Then they tie week 1, and then they don't score a point week 2 against the Jaguars? Panic. I'm panicked.
Yes.
I'm in Indiana. I'm panicked.
If he's the answer, I don't want to know what the question was. Bart, Cincinnati Bengals, panic or patience?
Panic. Listen, they invested heavily in that offensive line, and they're still getting pressure on Joe Burrow at a record pace. 13 sacks already. He's burping the baby a little bit too much. A little bit of that is on him. He's a victim of his own success. When you go to the Super Bowl, you get the attention of defensive coordinators. They have figured out the Da Vinci code of how to stop Macaulay Culkin. He's home alone, Greeny.
He does look a little like him. Anyway, here's the good news. We actually asked Joe Burrow the same question, panic or patience. Here's what he said.
Everyone is frustrated, but like I said, we're not panicking. 2 games in, we got 15 games left. So I'll just take a deep breath and relax. We're going to be fine. We're not worried about it.
Okay. That's the right thing for him to say in front of everybody up there. He knows how to play that game. Then we get on the field and there have been troubles. Diana, what are you hearing?
Yeah, so I got this game on Sunday at MetLife Stadium, actually, right? So you got this 0-2 Bengals team, which we see the quarterback getting hit at record numbers. If this continues, he's going to get sacked over 100 times by the end of the season. So they're going to make some changes. They got to add to the run game. That's where you're really going to start to see a little bit of a difference. Look, you don't have to be an expert to know that Joe Burrow's got to get the ball out a little bit faster. But it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to use tight ends and running backs in the protection here to give some relief there, because guys, we know they've got 4 different offensive linemen that are starting this year, and they're still trying to figure it out, and we're just watching it with our own eyes. And they're going up against this Jets defense that they are going to want to eat on Sunday against them, and I can tell you they've got a game plan in place ready to take advantage of it.
All right, we will see how they do. But, Bart, you and I are about to do something. We're going to go a little bit next level here, because it is all well and good for everyone to watch these games and say, oh, Joe Burrow's getting sacked a lot. Obviously, the offensive line is playing badly. Well, hold everything. There's actually more to the story. If you look at the win rate of the blocking, if you look at how the offensive line are actually performing, it's basically average. It's exactly the same as Patrick Mahomes' offensive line is performing. Mahomes has been sacked once. Burrow has been sacked 13 times. Bart, some of this is on the quarterback himself.
A lot of this is on the quarterback. I mean, I think he's trying to go to the well too often. He's trying to get the big play. He's featuring Jamar Chase too much, right? We saw in that graphic that Jamar Chase has 25 targets and everybody else has 63. You have to understand, when you go to the Super Bowl, they watch the film about how you got defended in the Super Bowl, especially when you lose. They're playing cover 2. So, Diana, you were spot on when you talk about it has to be Hayden Hurst and it has to be Mixon. That's where the offense has to go, because they're stopping you with a 7-man box. And now they're getting hands at the line of scrimmage, and you have 7 people in coverage. So if you keep the tight end in, if you keep the running back in, that's 3 people in a route with 7 people, defending the pass. That's going to make you hold on to the ball, and eventually the protection is always going to break down. So they have to run the ball in the light box. They have to be patient, the same way that Patrick Mahomes had to be patient last year when teams were doing it. And what did he do? It was quick screens. It was featuring the back and option routes, and also the tight end up the middle of the field. That's how you defeat cover 2. That's what they're going to have to do if they want to have some success. Can he be patient? I don't know.
And the point, D-Wood, is sometimes we look at sacks and immediately say that's an offensive line statistic, but it's really not necessarily true. Frequently, it's a quarterback statistic as well. Is that the case from what you're looking at? What are you seeing in that struggle in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not going to let the offensive line off the hook because there's been some issues there, but Bart is absolutely right. It is on the quarterback. It's not. Protection is more than just offensive line. It's receivers getting open. It's the quarterback getting the ball out of his hand. And Joe Burrow is holding on to the ball too much, and that's creating these sacks, these pressures. And guess what? Joe Burrow can sit up there in the press conference and say, oh, we're fine, we're everything a little bit. You fall to 0-3. There's been only one team in the last 20 years to make the postseason after going 0-3. Better have some fire coming into MetLife.
Defensively, when we would go against a team and the quarterback was watching the rush, we knew we had him. And we knew we had when the quarterback starts to look at the rush and isn't evaluating the field, that's when there's problems. So if you look at some of these plays, he's looking down the field, then he's looking at the rush in front of him and trying to find a spot to jump around, then looking down the field. That's too long. It takes too much time. And you also have to understand, Joe Burrow started his career with an ACL tear being hit in the pocket.
Yeah.
Then he comes back, they have a great season, and then now he's getting hit again too much. So you look at the amount of hits that he's taken, you start to become a little shell-shocked, and you speed up your timing with, I need to get the ball out, Well, then you start forcing balls where they shouldn't be, and you start pushing it to one player because you're more confident in that guy, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. They have to win this game. They have to, especially in the AFC. If they go 0-3,
Yeah.
That's a big problem.
You add to all of those all the time he missed in training camp with the appendix. It's a tough start for Cincinnati, but as he said, it's a long season. We'll see if they can get it back together. In the meantime, the U.S. men's national team